Hi guys, and welcome to It's a Heartthang. And if the words that I share here on my channel help you out in any way, then please subscribe. The topic we're discussing today is what you give, you also get to keep. And I know those words may sound like a contradiction. How can you give away something and at the same time get to keep that thing? So I'm going to dive right into the law of circulation. And the law of circulation states that all things in the universe are always flowing in circulation, but at an ever expanding rate. In other words, what you give to one person, you will receive from a different source. The best way I can explain this to you, or kind of put it in layman terms, is to give you an example. Growing up as a child, my parents had 7 of us, and I recall many days watching them sitting at the kitchen table writing out their bills, and it was like one of those quiet moments in the house where you didn't go in and you didn't disturb them. You was like they're in there writing out their bills, and there was a mental struggle going on. Or times we would go to the grocery store and one of my brothers might pop something in the basket and my mom or dad would say, no, take that out. We can't buy that. We don't have enough. We can't spend any more money. Or, hey, that good one. Do you think that money grows on trees? No. So as a young adult, I grew up with those same concepts in my head. Now, there I was, single, no children, and making decent money, but somehow I was still struggling with money. And I didn't understand, and it made me feel like, even though I graduated with degrees, that I somehow was still somewhat incompetent. And then I went to one of these study groups, and they brought up the law of circulation. And that's when I changed my whole focus and attitude about money. And I remember telling people, I no longer struggle with money. I have now surrendered, and I allow what's for me come to me, and I don't struggle with it any longer. But how I would do it, it was like, for instance, going to the grocery store or going shopping and buying myself something nice. Instead of me sitting there and handing this dollar bill to the cashier and saying, I'm spending this and somehow I'm struggling with this spending, I would see myself as circulating this money back to the cashier. And I would say to myself, I am giving this money towards the cashier's wages, and those wages will be given to her so she can go out and pay her rent. So she have something to protect her from the elements outside. Or she would take that money and purchase food so she could nourish her body. Or if she had a child in daycare, she could take that money and pay the daycare provider, providing her child a safe environment while she's working. But then I would take it a step further, and I would say, and now I see that cashier going in and circulating that dollar to the daycare provider, who in turn goes in and pays the rent, and now they have shelter, buy food, so now she has nourishment. So it's like that on, and sort of that concept of paying it forward. And what I want to say to you about the law of circulation, it is always in effect. Whether you want to circulate or not, it is always in effect. By that I mean, say for instance, if you get this unexpected bill and now you gotta pay a large amount of money for something that you had not planned on, or your car breaks down, you gotta get it repaired. You have a flat tire, so you either gotta get it fixed or buy a new tire. But the problem is that now you're putting out negative circulation. So you're paying out this dollar, but instead of it going through that positive circulation, you're now putting it out there in the world as negative circulation. And so it's detrimental to you, and it could possibly be detrimental to the person that you're passing it on to. So the goal here is to give frequently and in small amounts. And when I say give, I don't mean just money. I mean of your time, a smile as you're walking down the street. You smile at someone, you do it frequently. And when you do that, that circuit is constantly in motion. However, there are those of us who say, well, I give once or twice and it's a large amount, so it evens out. No, it doesn't. That large amount done once or twice a year causes stagnation in that circuit. So now you're coming from a place of stagnation. An example is, hey, you have a pool and somehow you go in and you do weekly maintenance, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, let's have an impromptu pool party. Well, you've been doing weekly maintenance, so your pool is fine. But say on the other hand, you don't take care of your pool. You just let it get all the stuff in it and just not do anything that maintains it. And now it's like, hey, let's have an impromptu pool party. So now you're spending more time, energy, and money to get that pool ready for this pool party. And what you're putting out there is, once again, is negative circulation. So frequent, small amounts versus large amounts, infrequent. You want to keep that flow, that circuit in motion. And what I want to say also is that when you give from the overflow. And we talked about this last week, giving from the overflow. But here's the deal. When you give from the overflow, make sure you want to give. Do not feel like you have to give or feel like you're required to give or that's the standard. Because even though it's the overflow and you're giving from that, if you don't give from a place of I want to, then you're putting out, once again, negative circulation. And never, and I repeat, never give from your cup that hasn't overflowed. Because all you do now is deplete yourself. And whatever you do give, and it can cause resentment, it can cause frustration, and just feeling like as if you were taken advantage of. So you always want to make sure that you're giving from a place of I want to, and not that I need to. And the last thing I want to address is that when you give, you have to be open to receive. Once again, that's the circuit. So when you give, you allow yourself to receive, which is the law of reciprocity. I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm going to wait for next week to talk about that. Hopefully these words have given you something that helps you in your daily activities and make you feel a bit more comfortable about circulating this dollar to the next person that is in need. So with that, have a good evening and thank you for listening, guys. Please subscribe, most definitely. Thanks again.